Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. It is September 7th. I can't believe it's September already. I apologize for the delay. A lot going on in the market over the previous couple hours, and we just wanted to check on things and make sure some data points were correct before talking to you guys. This has been, well, if you don't know, there was a little bit of a dip in the market, actually a rather large one that happened. But we're going to run over this. And we got CJ and Monte here, crypto analyst from marketrebellion.com, to basically give the play-by-play on what happened. But I will drop a hint, and these guys will dig into it further. A lot of liquidations, a lot of open positions blown out. Matter of fact, CJ, I think I don't know if you guys saw it. I saw it from Larry Cermak. Just a little while ago, it was over 2 billion in positions blown out in the last hour.
Well, looks like we're up to 3 billion.
3 billion
in the last 24 hours.
In the last 24 hours. That's crazy. Before we go any further, let me just tell everybody what we always say in the beginning. None of this is financial advice. Anything Market Rebellion or Trade the Chain go over is just to be educational and construed as such always. But yeah, I mean, we don't have long faces today. Listen, still bullish, still, cutting through. We just had a bunch of positions that collapsed early on. CJ, you want to kick this off?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I do want to talk a little bit about price. Of course, we will mention those liquidations and break some of that concrete data down. So first of all, heading over to Byte, we can see we have had 3.6 total liquidate, or 3.6 billion in total liquidations in the past 24 hours. Most obviously coming on Binance. And the majority of these are all long liquidations. So this is something that we haven't seen really since the sell-off back in May that really took us down below 30K. But I think something to understand is that when you have these massive cascading candles, this is when a lot of the liquidity gets taken up by institutional or just larger players for that matter. And I think we're seeing something very similar happen right now. There's a lot of funds that are still launching in the space, institutional grade capital that's coming into Bitcoin that they wanted opportunities to get in at lower prices, below the 50s after we had trended so strongly. And when we have, sell candles like this, and we have massive volume, that ultimately becomes what is known as the selling climax. And then we will typically enter a phase of reaccumulation where sellers will test these lows multiple times until we get to that final zone of support. And then we are usually followed by a spring upward. That turning point is really seen at this spring when you start to get like bullish engulfing candles. And this is all kind of from the Wyckoff school of thought. But I think we're getting something very similar here now that we've had a phenomenal run, over 100% in Bitcoin within the last month. And so now we saw a liquidity candle in which a lot of FOMO selling and panic selling actually ensued. But as of now, you can see that we're holding support at the 20 smooth moving average, really the critical level that we've seen this entire time. And we are finding some support at these previous critical Fibonacci levels, specifically 42K. We had highlighted 42K as the critical resistance level back a few weeks ago. I think this was kind of our worst case scenario target. And if we hit that, I think what we have to acknowledge now is that the trend has been like critically hurt. And I think we're going to need some time here, whether it be throughout the month of September or even into October, to go through a period of kind of reaccumulation. And, what that would look like is something similar to this. I'm going to pull up the chart a little bit later. I do want to pass it off to Monte first, but just the last thing that I want to point to here is that we did see a TD sequential 9 that ultimately led to this cascading effect where we saw the selling climax. Now we're actually seeing a bullish hammer candle on the 1 hour, and the bleeding seems to have stopped for the moment there. Pretty interesting. Nonetheless, above all, my takeaway kind of for this week is that Bitcoin dominance is still very, very strong. And I think it's going to continue to trend potentially up into the moving average, because what we've seen historically when we've gotten these TD buy nines on Bitcoin dominance in the 1 day perspective, we typically rally back to the moving average. We did that all throughout May, early on into June, and then once again in July. So I think that we're setting up for that pattern to continue and for Bitcoin to be the most resilient asset in the marketplace for, these next few days here. But a lot to unpack, a lot more to discuss in terms of going back into reaccumulation. But before we dive any deeper, I want to give both you gentlemen a chance to share your thoughts as well.
Yeah, CJ, I'm really glad you brought up Bitcoin dominance there at the end, because we had highlighted that last week on this show as something to look out for, because like you pointed out, we're bouncing off that TD sequential 9, but not only that, Bitcoin dominance is reaching a very critical level at about 40%. We talked about two possible opportunities, one being a break below this level in which Bitcoin kind of stagnates around 50K and the alts continue to run, or we bounce from that level and Bitcoin kind of acts as the front runner for the entire crypto market. It seems like we're getting the latter, so I'm glad you mentioned that. But I want to just talk about some pretty interesting Glassnode data, and this is from their market report that came out yesterday. Obviously, a lot has changed in the last 24 hours, but this data, I think, was kind of a good foreshadowing to what we're seeing this morning in the market. So as you can see, the headline here is leverage reaches new heights, which at the time wasn't an issue, right? And that's what's so hard about kind of pinpointing when these liquidations are going to happen, because they tend to happen when metrics are the most bullish. So taking a look at Bitcoin futures open interest, as you can see, this was approaching our previous peak of about 15 billion. And when that happened, there was a sharp sell-off following that event in which a lot of longs were liquidated in a very short amount of time. This ordinarily is a bullish metric, but given the fact that the writing was so on the wall that it was looking bullish, retail traders got ahead of themselves and opened up positions with leverage. And whenever you have that happen, it opens up to the market to some incredible volatility. You can see the same thing with Bitcoin's futures perpetual funding rate starting to really tick up over the last 2 weeks or so. And now if you were to take a look at this today, we'd be back in the negative. So whenever the market tends to get ahead of itself, that's when we see these long liquidations happening. And I just thought it was interesting that, given the fact that we were approaching previous all-time highs, retail traders were getting long. That's when the big whales and the institutions use it as an opportunity to drive price down, liquidate these positions, and get in at a lower dollar cost average. So lots of interesting market dynamics at play here. But I do agree with CJ that Bitcoin dominance is one of the most important ones to look out for. As you can see, we're kind of bouncing from this level here on the daily chart. And I think a move back up to this 20-period smooth moving average is starting to look likely. And in the market, that would just look like sort of the alts seeing a little bit of profit taking and those profits moving back into Bitcoin, and Bitcoin kind of performing well while the space is somewhat stagnant. So lots of metrics to take a look at today, but nonetheless, all very interesting stuff here.
Interesting. And that's why we always say, folks, take a look at the open interest. It's a great way to kind of get another gauge on the market and what could potentially happen. I mean, we say it week in, week out, especially as we get closer to expiration dates too. But the leverage is becoming somewhat an issue. It's actually always been an issue. Thoughts on if any of that gets reined in? We had earlier reports, let's see, going back about a month ago, 6 weeks ago now, how even Binance was preparing to trim back leverage, as well as some other exchanges. Do you think this is going to help the volatility in the market, or retail traders in general, or do you think they should just leave well enough alone?
Well, I mean, I don't believe in any. If you want to do 100x leverage, be my guest. I have no qualms with that. Does it lead to massive cascading opportunities, yes, it leads to these sell-offs, and they're very, very powerful. That creates a lot of opportunity on the short side if you want to play that way. I don't see there to be a need for like regulation. I really, it bothers me when people say manipulation, like this move was all manipulation. It's, if a poker player has more chips, they can bully the other players in the game. That's not
Yep.
manipulation. Those are the rules of the game. The same thing applies for a larger whale trader. Say there's a ton of leverage longs at one particular area. If they want to make a big sell order and liquidate those longs so that they can then buy back on a cheaper price, that's perfectly fine with me. That's not manipulation. That's playing the game to your advantage. And it's not easy to do. It's not like it's a free lunch for the larger players either. Sometimes it doesn't work all the way. Nonetheless, that's something in the crypto market that's been very profound and has moved markets tremendously. So
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think they need to rein it back at all. But I do want to make a point as well, now that I have the charts in front of me, about a potential reaccumulation phase. But first, any thoughts on leverage, Monte and Alex?
Well, I mean, the first thing I just want to pop in here is this is why I'm still bullish. You could see where the flash crash happened on the sentiment, the price of Bitcoin, but you see sentiment actually increase and rising. So what's interesting is what we've seen before when there's been an overload of FUD in the marketplace, we've seen the sentiment start dip, meaning that people weren't as excited to the upward side on Bitcoin, and kind of create those troughs, which look like this in red, but not here. This is straight rising sentiment. You see the flash crash, which is not because people are not into Bitcoin anymore. So I think that we're just going to power right through it and head up into the 51, 52 mark like we were looking at before. Sorry, Monte.
No. That's a great point, Alex. And I think that is very important to look at that sentiment right now, because it doesn't feel like there's a lot of fear in the market, even though we've seen such a tremendous decrease in price and such tremendous volatility. That's typically accompanied by fear. But I think in this case, everyone knows kind of what's happening. The levered longs are getting shaken out. Nothing fundamentally has changed. We're still, on track to meet with the stock flow model at end of year. I think a lot of people have just kind of seen this as a buying opportunity, one last buying opportunity before our final leg up here in this market cycle. So to me, it makes sense that sentiment is still strong, because really this was just an instance of, like CJ said, the biggest players at the table kind of bullying the smaller players. Not necessarily a bad thing, just an essential element of the market dynamic here. So I'm encouraged by the fact that we're bouncing off critical levels already. I think that this is being seen by many as just one last buying opportunity. So I'm encouraged by that sentiment for sure.
The funny thing is that no one ever complains when we move to the upside. No one calls it manipulation when we get short squeezes by the whales at 29K or 30K and then go to 42K in one move. It's the same premise on the other side, but no one says, oh, it's just manipulation. It's just jealous because you can't bully people on the, like, you're just jealous you don't have as many chips.
It's never manipulation to the upside, right?
No, not at all. But I do want to share something here as well in terms of like a technical formation of reaccumulation. This is an example of Apple by power charting, the Wyckoff School of Power Charting. I like them a lot. They do some good work. But, this is kind of similar. We had multiple tests of support in the Apple, back in the day. In 2010, larger players testing support, seeing, all right, are we really ready for this markup period? And similar to Bitcoin, once we failed, or I should say succeeded at support here and, was followed by bullish price action, we led to the markup phase until we hit some critical resistance. And then after we hit that resistance, where everybody jumps in and says, okay, now's the time to get long, that's when you have larger players create, a liquidation crash or a flash crash. And then we reach a selling climax with the massive liquidity candle where you get the massive wick. And it's something that looks very similar to Bitcoin right now. When you get these selling climaxes, we're usually near the bottom. And then throughout the next, few months, not everybody is I shouldn't say months, but throughout the next instances of price action, those retail traders who are so keen to get long up here at the top are not as excited to jump in the market. So we go into this period of consolidation, or Wyckoff would call it a area of technical reaccumulation, where whales sell at support multiple times to test that area to see, okay, is the market really ready to go back up into a markup phase, or are we going to break support? But as more buyers are more comfortable to buy off of these levels, eventually comes a time where we see a spring and we see these bullish engulfing candles off of the final aspect of support, like what we saw here in the end of July that led us up to our modern, markup phase. So if we were to go into an accumulation phase like this, it would not surprise me at all. I do think the bottom is likely in the short term, but we may go down and test support a few times at 42K, like what we've done here. I think we're lining up for a very similar formation when you think about like the cause of the market. Institutions are still playing this market as if Bitcoin's going to finish the year above 100K, yet things have a tendency of getting very ahead of themselves. And I think that's what we did with Bitcoin getting all the way up to 52K here.
Yeah, but like I said, the three of us have revised what our outlook is for the end of the year slightly. We've kind of made it more realistic to the information that we have currently. But one of the things that I'm still not, I'm 100% for is the second leg. We are going to keep up, in my mind, going throughout the rest of the year. We're just not going to hit some of those numbers, like 400,000 that Guggenheim and the rest of the folks predicted a year ago. But that's okay. It's all right. It's a healthy market. Monte, any outliers in the market you're thinking of?
All the assets have really been trending together. I think that's one of the things that's been interesting to note this morning is kind of how, even though the conviction in Bitcoin remains strong, when we saw that sell-off, it kind of hit across the board. But some assets I think that I talked about it a little bit this morning, but I think that are somewhat oversold relative to the rest of the market is still the DeFi sector. Take a look at assets like Aave or like Comp, CeeLo. All of these assets have not performed really all that well over the last couple of weeks, especially relative to the rest of the market. Taking a look at Aave, as you can see, today's price performance has been comparable to the rest of the market. But if you look at its placement relative to this moving average here, you'll see that it's a lot less overextended than some other assets like DOT, or to a greater extent, assets like Cardano. So I think that looking at the DeFi sector over the next month could be an interesting play, just because so much of this speculation that we typically see in DeFi has just been going into the NFT sector. So I think that these assets have kind of been overlooked over the last month. Today, they're getting heavy speculation with the rest of the market. But that being said, they're still a long way off their previous all-time high, and I like their chances to perform well during the month of September if we see Bitcoin performing strong. But those are some outliers I'm watching.
What's interesting? I actually want to go. First Coast Crypto brought up something in the comments about FET Fetch, and I was just taking a look. I don't cover Fetch as a normal course of business, but take a look what's happened here. You have the 7-day. First of all, I love the sentiment leading price flow here, but look at what's happening in the 1 day. It's massive sentiment to price action here. We have see here. 58% in the last 7 days, 169 in the last 30 days, and we got a 1 hour projection of plus 10% to the bottom, 4.6%. Any of you guys know anything in particular about Fetch or cover it? I apologize, First Coast Crypto. I haven't kept it on my radar.
Honestly, I don't know much about it. I know it's seen ridiculous volume over the last 24 hours. someone in our chat was posting that it had seen over $1 billion over the last 24 hours. First time it's eclipsed that $1 billion mark in terms of fully diluted market cap as well. So interesting stuff going on there from Fetch. I don't know too much about the project fundamentally, but any asset that's showing strength into the market right now, I think is definitely worth a look.
Yeah. So just glancing over the basics of CoinMarketCap, Fetch is an AI platform, or it's a platform that aims to connect the Internet of Things and their devices and algorithms to enable their collective learning. It was launched in 2017 by a team based in Cambridge, the UK. It's for high throughput, smart contract capabilities. It seems a lot like IOTA, a blockchain for the Internet of Things. So I think it would probably be in that category of cryptocurrencies, but interesting nonetheless. And that one's on KuCoin, Gate.io, things of that sort.
Here's a hot tip for First Coast Crypto. It's number 2 in the daily sentiment, and it's currently number 3 in the 1 hour projected range. Wow, look at that. 700% up in the relative tweet volume, 766% up in the relative trading volume. So pretty good bullish 94 score. Wow. All right. Well, it's definitely an interesting day in the markets. Hanging with the headshots. Thank you. When you hear headshots, then Chris headshots. Appreciate that as always, folks.
I think they're talking about your Twitter profile picture. Oh no, you have an NFT now, but that old one that was just.
I have to switch. Yeah, I have the smoking bull. I have to switch it back to my normal corporate one, where I look very professional. So
despite the market downturn, we should just shed light on one asset that is up today and has been up quite a bit this week. And you guys know what I'm going with this. The Scent Mafia.
Oh, come on. This is like with you with VGX. I can't talk about this.
It's all right. We're here. Monte and I. Anyways, really interesting price action come off of the Uniswap pair. Just thought I'd show that. But yeah.
Well, thanks for the plug. I appreciate it. Scent Mafia, as they like to call themselves. That
makes you.
What's that?
The Don.
That makes me the Don. I don't want to be the Don. It's Monday, folks. Thanks for putting up with us on this day where some people get nervous. I think the overall consensus of us is we're not. I mean, we go through this week after week, but this is purely just open interest getting blown out. This has nothing to do with the markets. We're back in action, probably within hours, if not already, on the steady climb up. So just take it easy. No need to hang on to your handlebars. You can relax in the sofa at this point. Wednesday, what do you got coming up? By the way, if you're not watching the digital, there it is. Mess that up every time. What's the name of the show again, CJ?
The Daily Crypto Byte.
Daily Crypto Byte. If you're not watching the Daily Crypto Byte, definitely check it out. It's down in the description alone. And what do we have coming up on Market Rebellion on Wednesday? Any special guests?
Yeah, we're going to shoot for a special guest every Wednesday from here on out. Don't hold us to that, though. But Rob,
thanks for just clarifying, everybody in chat. It is Tuesday. It's not Monday. I apologize. The long weekend messed me up.
That's what happens when you're.
I'm not drinking. I swear to God.
And whatnot. You lose track of reality and what we have to do here. But yeah, we're gonna have Rob from Digital Asset News on tomorrow. He's going to talk about some NFTs as well as some other things in the markets. Next week, we may have Alex on. This is the first time I've brought it up to him, but we'll see. We'll see there. But yeah, stay tuned. We're going to try to have a guest on every Wednesday. And of course, you can tune in for our Doge of the Day picks and what we like to trade every day. So we appreciate that.
Well, if I'm going to be on next week, get ready for the lowest rated show you've ever done. This is going to be fantastic. few things heading out. Also, Bill, next NASCAR talk segment. I got to get Landon. I got to get our other scent driver, trade chain driver, Brandon, back on as well. And then we're all looking forward to Vegas, where Market Rebellion, Trade the Chain, Scent, Voyager are all going to be on the track together, which is interesting. So we're excited about that. Also, folks, Ryan's coming on a little bit later with me to do a news piece. And during that segment, we're going to announce the grand prize winner of the NASCAR VIP experience in Las Vegas. So if you entered to play, it could be you.
I entered.
You're not allowed to enter, Monte. It states in the rules. All right, guys, have a good one. Hang on to your handlebars or lounge in your sofa, either one. Life is good still right now. We'll let you know when we think it's going off course, and we'll catch you tomorrow.